All right, well, this would be a good episode, man. You had a social media post on this the other day that I saw was catching some traction. I thought it'd be good for us to talk about what we call the sorry pandemic.
Episode 103, the sorry pandemic. Yeah, I think that we all know someone or maybe are that person ourselves that are always apologizing, always saying, I'm sorry, even when it's things that you don't need to be apologizing for. I think it's become almost like a filler word for a lot of people in conversation, and it actually can have really negative effects if you're constantly using it, not only on yourself, but to the people that you're saying I'm sorry to when there's nothing to apologize for as well. So
What was it that got you going on that? Was there a specific incident or?
I think it was this was maybe in the last year or two. I don't remember exactly what it was,
Yeah.
but I feel that it was something specific that really got me going on it. Maybe something I read.
Okay. So why do you think people say sorry so much? It's one of the most overused words we have anymore. And why do you think that is?
I think that we've become conditioned and that there's this false perception that saying I'm sorry is being polite and being kind. And I think that it just becomes habitual of lots of interactions. If you any sort of social rejection, like even if someone's trying to sell you something, sorry, I'm not interested, right? You don't have to apologize for you not being interested in something that someone's selling you, or sorry. I'm having trouble thinking of examples, but there's a lot. There's a lot.
Well, here's one that I see all the time is when you're learning something new and you don't get it right. What's one of the first things people say?
Yeah.
Sorry. I see it in the gym all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I messed that up. And I always say, quit freaking apologizing.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because if you're learning, you're going to mess things up. And if we have to apologize for making mistakes while we're learning, then we're not in a place where we're free to learn.
That's a huge one.
Right? And that's absolutely one of the big ones is we have conditioned ourselves to believe that mistakes are always bad. And what I'm telling you is somebody that coaches people all the time, I want you to make mistakes. Because that means you're learning. I talk to you about it on the team all the time, right? That, hey, we're going to do some flow stuff. Try some different things. Don't worry about winning. Right? Because if we make a mistake, we might lose. Well, we also need to make mistakes to grow. In the learning process, and that's one of the things that we've really done a disservice to people is when they're learning, not embracing mistakes. When I talk to businesses or school districts, one of the things I ask them is, when the last time you celebrated an employee's mistake? Well, we don't. Why don't we? When Ali has this great idea that could potentially bring us 10x our revenue, and he pitches it to us and we embrace it, we try it and it fails, why don't we celebrate that failure? And then take the lessons we learned from the failure and go again. Because we know nothing gets solved the first time, right? Like it's repetition. We try something, it doesn't quite work out, we make some changes, we go, well, that was a failure. But we don't say, I'm sorry for trying.
Right.
But we've conditioned ourselves that we say sorry for everything.
Yeah.
Mistakes, not knowing something. When we're not sorry, we shouldn't be sorry.
Yeah. So I came up with a couple more. I'm sorry even when you're trying to get someone's attention, right? Even when you're calling the server, which that's their job is to serve you, right? And you're like, sorry, let me ask you this. Or even when you're trying to move past someone, we use I'm sorry interchangeably with excuse me.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Well, so let's talk about the definition of sorry, right? The definition of sorry is feeling distress, especially through sympathy with someone else's misfortune. That's strong,
Yeah.
right? So you don't need to feel distress or think that someone else has misfortune if you're asking them to move out of the way.
1,000 times a day.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're asking someone to repeat themselves,
Yeah.
right? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Or I'm sorry. You don't need to feel distress. It's not someone's misfortune if you didn't hear them the first time, right? I think excuse me is a great replace. Excuse me, can you say that again?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of I'm sorry, can you say that again? Because words have so much weight and meaning, and every time you use them, there's a certain energy. A sorry is a distress type of energy.
Right.
So we're not only bringing each other down, but ourselves. So there was a journal I was looking at before this episode called The Frontiers of Psychology. They published an article saying that when you say I'm sorry when rejecting any type of proposal from someone, whether it's like canceling plans or something as intense as breaking up with someone, or really anything that a friend or family member proposes to you, you can actually cause them to feel worse and have them feel like they have to forgive you now. When really you can simply say, hey, I don't want to do that, or I'm not interested. You don't have to preface it with sorry, yet I think that our society has conditioned it and confused it with being kind.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And it was funny because I wrote down some notes what is the physical reaction of constantly apologizing? Right? If I'm constantly saying, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for not knowing, I'm sorry for not learning, I'm sorry for having to get ahead of you in line, I'm sorry for not hearing you again, it's depressing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're literally always apologizing for everything. It increases your stress. Right? Think about when we know when we know we've done somebody wrong, when we know that, okay, this is something I need to go make amends for. What is the stress that comes to you preparing for that? Or like, oh, shit, I'm going to see Ali today at 7, man. I know what I did a couple weeks ago. I didn't follow through on what I said I was going to do, and it caused him pain, so I got to apologize. You usually have angst, right? You're just like, oh, man. Dude, I'm sorry. I dropped the ball last week. I told you, right? That's a good use, right? I caused you pain.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I have stress preparing for that.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, constantly apologize is depressing, right? You don't lift yourself up. You're taking yourself, we go back to our vibrations, constantly apologizing, I guarantee is one of the lower vibrations. It's not raising people up.
Mm-hmm. It's
internally stressing. And then it ultimately leads to a lack of confidence in myself, right? Like I don't see the two working well. People that apologize all the time are always sorry, generally have a lack of self-confidence.
100%.
And why is that? Because they're constantly beating themselves up for everything they don't get right. And the reality is we shouldn't get everything right. If we're getting everything right, it means we're doing the exact same thing all the time.
Yeah.
So what can we replace with sorry? Excuse me is a good one.
Gratitude is the big one. Gratitude is a foundational replacement for saying I'm sorry. And you can use gratitude even when you've committed minor faults, right? I highly recommend to not apologize unless it's a pretty substantial fault, right? But let's say even you're running 2 minutes late, 3 minutes late to a meeting, right? Is that worth the feeling of distress? Is that someone else's misfortune? I wouldn't go that far.
Right.
But you're running a little late. Instead of being, I'm so sorry I'm late, you can say, thank you so much for your patience.
Yeah, thanks for waiting for me.
Thank you for waiting on me.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. I got caught a little late.
Yep. The salesman, right? If you have someone that's trying to sell you something and you need to turn them down, hey, thanks for thinking of me. I'm not interested. Not I'm sorry I'm not interested. Yeah. Thanks for thinking of me.
What about this? I preparing for this, I thought of this option as well. Do you think people say I'm sorry to avoid consequences?
Maybe.
right? Because sorry is an emotion, right? Because we're right in the definition there through sympathy, right? So I think like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't do this, blah blah. I had this going on, right? I think a lot of times people are trying to get sympathy from you.
Right.
Well, they didn't do this, but they had a lot going on. They apologized, so we'll move past it.
Yeah.
Right? I think it was almost like a precluder to, hey, don't hold me accountable.
Right. Now I'm off the hook. I said I'm sorry. I
Well, how many times
apologize.
people say something rude to you and then they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Right.
Well, you're not off the hook. You still said it.
Yeah.
So you're still thinking it. So let's figure out. Right? So I think that could be part of it too, is we say I'm sorry because we think it's going to relieve us of consequence.
Mm-hmm.